Hello, good evening. Coming to you live from Natural Balance in Trinidad and Tobago. So when I get this video out, I have made some posts on the subject of the COVID virus infection and how how natural therapists view it or would treat with it. So I made these posts on the Natural Balance Facebook page, some of them already, and I just want to do a video because I think I can expand a little bit more, and hopefully the message can go even further. And when I say further, not only in Trinidad and Tobago, but anywhere that people can pick it up around the world. I haven't personally seen any or much information coming through on natural treatments. There's a bit, but I haven't seen anything comprehensive. So, just to start out, I want to talk about a little bit about our immunity. And firstly, it would be ideal if all of us were healthy. And if we were healthy, then we will have good digestive systems and good elimination and good immune systems, and everything would be working well, the nervous system and so forth. Unfortunately, that's not the case. But as we are now presented with this situation, worldwide situation, persons have to act quickly and do what would be the best thing to do to help them protect themselves from getting it in the first instance. And while I think that most everyone will get it at some point, what we need to do is to be ready for it, to get our bodies ready, to get our immune systems ready, so that our immune system can be strong and can deal with it. I just looked at the press conference on the television by the Ministry of Health, and even though a reporter asked the question about, so someone isolates themselves because they have symptoms, and what are they to do? And it was answered that, okay, well, after 14 days, well, they can come out of isolation. But what are people to do when they are in isolation, and what is the treatment protocol? You must have a treatment protocol. And there was no mention of any treatment protocol. Now, while they say there's no drugs to eliminate the virus and there's no vaccines to eliminate the virus, you must have standard healthcare protocols. What you do besides isolation and quarantine. What are you going to do for the person? Are you going to feed them? What are you going to feed them? Right? And what are you going to give them to ease their suffering? Right? And some people think that, you need to bring the fever down, and you need to take away the headache and these things. And as I have seen today, there's some news coming out of France that anti-inflammatories are a possible cause of fatalities among coronavirus victims. And there was a call by the Minister of Health in France, and I saw that early this morning, to tell people to stop using ibuprofen because it seems to be linked to fatalities from victims of the coronavirus. And as we know, many elderly people are on these anti-inflammatory type medications already, whether it is for their arthritis or some other type of inflammatory condition they may have. And then people tend to use these things, Panadol and so forth, when they have headaches and fevers. And I'm going to tell you that it's a bad thing, and I'm going to get into it. So, the first thing I want to speak about in prevention, besides the hygiene and the isolation and don't go anywhere and don't touch anybody, and it's kind of impossible, is that one part of the immune system that we take for granted is our immune system. Of the immune system is our mucous membranes. And the mucous membranes are the wet membranes. They're made by mucous membrane cells. And they're in various places in the body. They line the gastrointestinal tract from your lips all the way down to your anus inside. And they prevent for, the lubrication or the easy passage of food through the tract. And we have them also in the respiratory tract, and many of us would have done biology and would have known about the wet membranes and the ciliary hairs that line the tract. And as you breathe, the ciliary hairs move up, and with the mucous membranes, or the mucus, that the mucous membranes have produced this mucus, the mucus traps particles. So it could be dust, smog, it could be pathogens, virus, fungi, bacteria, whatever, and trap it in the mucous membranes. Many people have insufficient mucus being produced, and people think mucus is a bad thing. Mucus is not a bad thing, right? We need to have mucus, and mucus is the part inside of the respiratory tract from the entrance here all the way down into the bronchioles, and that traps particles. And when it traps things like pathogens, viruses and bacteria and fungi, it traps it there, and of course the ciliary hairs try to bring it out with every outer breath and bring it up. And if it is fluid enough, it will be able to come up, and we can either swallow it in the throat when it comes to this area, and it can be dealt with by the hydrochloric acid in our stomach pouch, because our stomach pouch is high in hydrochloric acid. Hello from France. Hi, Marianne. So we need to make sure that these mucous membranes are functioning, that they're healthy, and they're making mucus. Many of us have dry mucous membranes. I'm going to talk about certain herbs that are mucous membrane tonics and that can help you develop good, healthy mucous membranes that will make your mucus fluid and be there to protect you, basically. But before I mention the herbs that do that, I want to mention about cleansing of the upper respiratory tract. So we are supposed to breathe through our nostrils, and as I said before, we have the mucus and we have the ciliary hairs and hairs around. Those annoying hairs, as we get older, they become annoying because they grow out of the nose. So we need to clean this inside there on a daily basis. They're talking about washing your hands, and that's very good. But when you come home and you wash your hands, if you've been out, you need to wash your nasal cavity, because it would have trapped pathogens that you would have picked up already in the supermarket or hanging out with friends or family or being in a taxi or anywhere in close proximity. You would trap these pathogens. And you want to get rid of it. You want to help the body get rid of it. And a good way to do it is to wash it out. to clean out the nostrils. The modern shower does not afford the cleansing of the nostrils, but if we went to the beach and jumped in the water or in a pool or in the river, our nostrils would get cleaned out under those circumstances, in a pool and a river and so forth, and in the ocean. But using the modern shower, it bypasses the nose, and nobody thinks really about cleansing the nose until, you know, it gets blocked up, and you take a bit of a pick and you know, throw some, what we call in Trinidad, boo-boo. We call the stuff we pull out of the boo-boo, and we throw it away, or stick it under the desk or something. But we need to wash it out, and right now we need to really get active with that and wash it out every time we come from an area that we may have picked up some pathogens or this corona virus. And one of the ways to do it is with a neti pot. A neti pot is a little pot. I should have brought one with me from the front. It's just a little pot, looks like a teapot, and just designed to fit snugly in one side of the nostril. And you fill it up with water, and you can fill it with salted water. And if you're using salted water, the best one is the Celtic sea salt that comes from the north of France. That is the best. It's very antimicrobial. Nothing lives in the presence of salt. That's why they used to salt fish and so forth. Somebody is asking if my medication contains alcohol. And yes, most of my herbs will contain alcohol because it is drawn down in a water and alcohol mixture rather than just a water mixture like how we make a tea. So if we make a tea with the herbs, you're not going to get all the active ingredients out of the herb. You want, right? So we make it, I don't make it, it's made in Australia by a company that makes it for practitioners of herbal medicine and naturopathic doctors. And so it's made in a medium of water and alcohol, and it brings down also the alcohol soluble constituents into the medicine. So it's a much stronger preparation than if I just drew some herbs in a pot of water and made a tea. Right? Distilled water. Somebody's asking again. I will try to answer the questions as I can, but I will have to move on. Distilled water is for car batteries and for laboratory work. Distilled water is really not for human consumption. So you can just use a good mineralized water, and you get good mineralized water by adding Celtic sea salt to your water, right? You can get the best water that you can get, except for like spring water, but it's the next thing to spring water. So washing out the nose with water or salt if you want in the water, using a neti pot by inserting it into one nostril, tilting the head. You can do it in the yard or over a basin, and the water will go in and circulate and come out the next nostril. And you can do that a couple of times with each nostril. So besides washing the hands, you need to wash here. Another way to do it, and I don't use the neti pot, I just use my hands, and I cup my hands like this. Yes, the salt comes from the north of France, and I cup my hands as if I'm going to drink water, but I bring my hands up like this and cup it here, and allow in the shower, when I'm in the shower, and allow the water to come above my nostrils, opening here, and I inhale it. I inhale the water very gently, so it's just water out the shower. While I'm having a shower, I do it twice a day, and I always do it. I've been doing it for almost 25 years, and I inhale the water as far as you can get it. As you start, you may only get it up a certain area in the nose here. Hold it and then blow out and blow out, and you can do it several times. I've been doing it for a long time, as I said, and I can take the water back and have it touch my throat, and I can bring it up, right? So I clean the whole area. And I can tell you, since doing that, I no longer suffer with any upper respiratory problems as I used to when I was younger. So that is the important thing, is to keep it clean. What I want to mention now are the herbs which are mucous membrane tonics and can help you improve the quality of the cells and that lining of the respiratory tract, the mucous membranes. And those herbs are astragalus. Astragalus is a great herb. It's an immune-enhancing herb. It's a Chinese herb. And it's a mucous membrane tonic. It does other things as well for the immunity, and it's a heart tonic and all sorts of stuff, right? We normally prescribe it and use it. We normally prescribe it and use it when you are not ill, because we don't use the tonic herbs when we are ill, because tonic herbs tend to also strengthen bacteria and viruses. There's some exceptions to using astragalus when you do have a heavy viral load and you can use it. But astragalus is one mucous membrane tonic, and I recommend that everybody start using astragalus as one of the mucous membrane tonics now, so that if you don't get the corona for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, you have the time to start strengthening those mucous membranes. The other mucous membrane tonic that I'll mention is ribwort. Ribwort is another really good mucous membrane tonic. Right? We use it a lot to change the situation in the upper respiratory tract and to help people to get rid of the chronic sinus infections and hay fever and that kind of irritability that goes on there. Because when the cells in here are not well, they really become irritable. And so any particulate, any dust or anything that goes in there, it aggravates them, and they're sneezing for a day and a night and whatever. There's another very good mucous membrane tonic, and that is golden seal. A lot of people know about golden seal. Golden seal is a very good herb. It's an antibacterial herb. So we don't really want to use it when we get the viral load or the virus infection, whether it's common influenza flus or whether it's this new novel coronavirus, right? But so that's its antibacterial activity. But what we want to use it for, the second herb was ribwort, right? So you got it, ribwort. So the golden seal is a mucous membrane tonic, but you don't want to use it at the high dosages because it's a very potent herb. It's got something called alkaloids in it, and we have to use it with some respect. And if we are using long term, when I say long term, for more than a week or two, and as a mucous membrane tonic, we just want to use it as a very low dose, right? Oil of Oregon. I don't know about using oil of Oregon internally. Inhaling it, burning it is okay for me, right? I am not an aromatherapist, but I know that the essential oils are potent. I have been burnt by them, and I've seen people being burnt by them. So ingesting them, I don't recommend it, but yeah. So to continue, so golden seal, a low dose, long period of time. So those are three mucous membrane tonics: astragalus, ribwort, and golden seal. And yeah, so I'm recommending people use all three of them. You can use it together, individually. Use all three of them now, because you may have a little window of opportunity to tonify these membranes and get them healthy. So when the coronavirus drops into your airways, that we'll be able to trap it. And it's not going to go straight down to the lungs on a dry situation and be able to impregnate itself. That's just one aspect here. Other thing is very good for mucous membrane tonics, and that's beta-carotene. You can either take a pill or you can eat your carrots and your pumpkin and also green leafy vegetables, right? Vegetables is the way to go. Eat as much as you want. diversify, eat them all. Right. Okay, we spoke about washing the nostrils and the two different ways with the neti pot and so forth. So I'm going to go on now to a little bit more on prevention, right? And what I'm going to talk about is vitamin C. I've been starting to get big on vitamin C on the last year or two that I've been taking it regularly. I used to only take the vitamin E and my other multivitamins, but C is very important for many other things and reasons why I take it. But we do know, everybody knows it's very good for your immune system, and research shows that vitamin C together with zinc are shown to reduce the duration and the severity of colds and flus. So we know that already, right? So I recommend you use vitamin C. Use a good one. Use one that's not just ascorbic acid, you know, mix it up. The ester C is good so that it has calcium ascorbate, sodium ascorbate, and ascorbic acid, so it's not harsh on your stomach lining, nor would you be, you know, putting a very acid load on your system, right? My recommendation now would be 1,000 to 2,000 twice a day, right? Certainly if you're infected, 2,000 twice a day, right? Dose in mils of what? Mils would pertain to liquid, right? So 1,000 milligrams would pertain to weight. So vitamin C would be administered in milligrams, right? Or as a powder, and you can measure it in a spoon, and you can get, you know, how much a teaspoon would be. I think it's about 2,500 milligrams per teaspoon. Right? So the other one is zinc. Zinc is very important for the immunity. It helps with building a lot of immune cells, especially when it has to code the DNA to make the antibodies to respond to the infection. Remember, you make antibodies, and you want to be able to make your antibodies, right? And there's no antibodies, there's no antibiotics for viruses, so there's nothing for viruses in the medical pharmaceutical area, right? But your body has an immune system, and it working well, you can defend it from most anything, if not anything, right? I read that your body can only absorb, no, that's not correct. Some people can absorb 10,000, right? So everybody has a different threshold, and so when we're giving, like for cancer patients, I like to go up to 10,000 per day. Not everybody can take 10,000, so we start them off taking 2,000, 3,000 the next day, 4,000 the next day, and so forth, until you get a bit of a diarrhea and you know that's your threshold, and you come down from there. So say you had diarrhea with 7,000 on that day, the 7th day maybe, and then you can reduce it to 6,000, and then you'll be all right, and you'll be able to absorb it and so forth. You must take vitamins with your food. Right? Don't just drink your vitamins with water and that's it. You want to have vitamins and minerals with your food, right? If you're taking herbs, you can take them by themselves unless you were told otherwise by your herbalist or naturopathic doctor. But vitamins with your food, omega oils with your food, and I'm a bit big on omega oils for those who know me. I use a lot of oil. I use 3, 4, 5, 6 tablespoons of omega oil a day, you know, so that's 45 to 90,000 milligrams of oil. Plenty of oil, and I'm not fat, as you can see. So I use a lot of fat, but I'm not fat. So we spoke about zinc. We need zinc, and most of the population, most of the population, not just here but on the Western diet, is zinc deficient. Zinc is one of the #1 mineral deficiencies of people on the Western diet. But with zinc, you just want to do a course of zinc for about 3 months, and then you stop. You don't keep taking zinc because it can deplete other minerals. So now is the time to start your zinc to get your immune system up. Your vitamin C, the mucous membrane tonics. A little bit about probiotics. Probiotics are used in the gut. You can use them in tablets. I use them in tablets because I don't really like some of the stuff that you have to consume, plus it's very expensive, some of these things that are being sold, kombucha and kefir and I have used some of those before, and in fact I had a bad experience with one, you know, it was a little bit bad, I got quite ill actually. So I just use a good probiotic, you build it up, and then you can use, I just use 1 or 2 a week just to keep my maintenance levels of my good bacteria at the levels that I want them at. Probiotics, Ulo's oil. Ulo's oil is the oil I use, and certainly I promote because, you know, I'm the agent for it, but I think it's the best supplement for omegas in the world. Usually we're promoting it for omega-3 to help with the inflammatory process, right? Because most of us suffer from excess of inflammation, and it's really because of a lack of omega-3, right? If we don't have enough omega-3 in our bodies, one of our metabolic pathways where we're trying to get things out of our body requires omega-3, and without the sufficient amount of omega-3, the body has to take a different alternative pathway, and that pathway creates inflammatory compounds that then circulate in the body and promotes inflammation. So if you get a bruise or infection, it gets worse, right? Or the inflammation part of it gets worse, right? But now I'm promoting the Ulo's oil for its omega-6 content, right? Of course, it was there ready to do those things, like provide building blocks for your skin cells and your hormones, because they need the omega-6 for that. And so today, what I'm promoting with the omega oil, the Ulo's oil, is the 6th part, because the 6th part makes cellular membranes, right? And you want to have good, healthy cell membranes. There's not just the mucous membranes there, but we're talking about other cells in the body, right? Because what happens is that the virus must penetrate your cell membrane, because it has to go inside of your cell. Unlike a bacteria could live on the surface of your skin, or a fungus could live on the surface of your skin, or it could live inside of you between your cells, in the interstitial tissues. It can live just floating around in the blood, right? It can live on the cells. But viruses must penetrate your cell so that they can go inside your cell to get energy. They pick up energy. They can't use the glucose that bacteria use, that you have swimming around your blood, because you have all this excess sugar content around. But viruses have to get into your cell so that they can live. They cannot get energy if they don't get into your cell. So if you have a poor cell membrane, it's going to be easy for them to get into your cell, right? So omega-6, right? The omega-3 is going to be good too, because it's going to modulate your immune response and the inflammation that you're going to get. And a little bit later, I'm going to talk about this inflammation and what the French have just said this morning about the anti-inflammatory medicines that are not or possibly injuring these victims of the coronavirus, and may have caused the deaths of the people with corona by using anti-inflammatory medications like the ibuprofen. Take heed, people, and do as he says. Thanks, Anne-Marie. Thanks for that. Yeah. So, yeah, well, I'll talk about that now. Let me just see what else I have to mention. Okay. After this, I'm going to talk about what you need to stock up on that you can take when you get infected, because we're going to get infected. Okay? We're all going to get infected. It might be mild. We want it to be mild. I want mine to be mild. I want mine to be very mild. I want it to happen quickly so I can get over with it, right? Yeah. So this morning, there was some news, verified news, coming out of France, where the Minister of Health in France made an announcement that it was discovered that the persons who were suffering from the coronavirus, who were given the ibuprofen, succumbed to their illness. So something with the ibuprofen. And I could basically generalize and tell you how it works, right? And it's not just the ibuprofen. It's Panadol and all those anti-inflammatory things that people take for fevers and headaches, and they take it just easily like that, right? So the first off is that people are going to take these things for infections when they have fever and headache to try to alleviate the pain. And I'm sure they're doing it in the hospitals. The Ministry of Health today did not say in their press conference how to treat someone who has coronavirus. They say isolate them, and that was it. And that's really why I'm doing this video, because that got me a little bit upset, because they're not giving any protocols of how to take care of yourself or a loved one who is sick with the virus. So if you give somebody this ibuprofen or Panadol or something, what that does is it stops your inflammatory response, right? It stops you from being able to make inflammation. And inflammation is a good thing, right? Most of our immune response is inflammatory in nature. When you bounce your foot, you bounce your hand, it swells up, right? It does so to activate the healing mechanisms. When you get sick and you get an infection in your throat, you get a swelling in your throat, right? When you get an infection here, you get a swelling and a puffiness, right? In your ears, it swells, it gets red, okay? You get an infection in your stomach, you get tenderness because there's inflammation, right? Inflammation is a good thing, right? It is the white blood cells and other parts of the immune system coming to the rescue, coming to the pathogen and trying to surround the pathogen and deal with it. So when you use those type of pharmaceutical medicines to lower that, you're going to have an escalation in the viral load or bacterial load or whatever load you have and that you're trying to fight. But you're not going to fight it by taking those things and bringing down your immune response capacity where it is concerned with inflammation. And the next thing now, which is a very, very important thing, very important, and I was going to do a separate one on this, but it's just got to be here. Sorry that this is so long, but I got to say, I have to stay. The press conference said nothing, right? Fever. Fever is a good thing. Fever says, I have an infection, right? Tells me that. I have an infection. Something is wrong. One, of course, don't give it to somebody else. So isolate, barricade, whatever you want to do. That is normal common sense. We should know that, all of us, right? You don't want to sneeze on people and all those things. Yeah. But problem is that people think they need to take the fever down because somehow they think the fever is going to kill them. The fever is not going to kill you. The fever is your immune system at work, right? Your immune system is going about the B or T lymphocytes are going, checking out the pathogen, right? Surrounded it with the mucus, right? Trying to get the code for what this pathogen is and give the information to make an antibiotic, antibody, right? So the virus or whatever it is the antigen, and you now can make the antibody to any virus, to any bacteria, even if it's new. That's how your body designed to work, right? Designed to work like that. I think it's something called dendrites and macrophages. They come at the site and they surround it. They start to try to disable it, right? And then I think the T lymphocytes or something, they come and they take the code, right? And they start to make the antibodies and put it into circulation in your body, right? And after that, you're gonna have an immune response ready to react for next time you get it, right? So you're building your own immunity. You don't need vaccines, right? None of my children have vaccines. So who's saying? I've seen people die at heart that died from a tetanus, right? Nobody's going to vaccine me. It's going to be a fight, right? And they're going to come. The governments are going to come when they mismanage this because they haven't embraced natural medicine, right? They haven't embraced it. And they're going to lose their battle. The patients that they attend to, they're losing. The ones that go into ICU, they're losing. The ones that they're in charge of, they're losing because they're giving them those anti-inflammatories. They're trying to reduce their fevers and take away their headaches, right? You don't want to do that. So back to the fever. You want to manage the fever and you want to promote your fever. The first thing I do if I get a fever is I take some herbs. I'll tell you what herbs in a minute. And I put it in a big mug, right? So then I drink 2 mugs of hot water with the herbs in it, like a herb tea, and I drink it down, right? Some of the herbs are antiviral, some of them immune stimulating, some of them are designed to make me perspire and sweat and to increase my body temperature, right? And so they're there, and the big cup, you know, if you have an enamel cup, a huge amount of water, hot water, and you drink that, and you get warm, you put clothes on, you go under the covers, you keep warm. All you need to do is keep the head cool, especially when tending to children or the elderly are not strong enough and they're like children now, and we need to keep the head cool. So you keep a basin of ice water with a little rag and you put it on the head, because you don't want the brain to get too hot because it can go into convulsions. Right? But otherwise, you want our body to be hot, sweating, and pumping out your antibodies and fighting whatever virus or bacteria that you're fighting, right? So fever is a good thing. I don't know how many of you used to watch Western movies when you were younger, and you will see, you know, the doctor goes in and the guy is sweating and then, and the doctor in those days, of course, were giving herbs. They didn't have any pharmaceuticals, and then they'll come out and say, you know, he broke the fever. He sweated it out and he broke the fever. And certainly my mother used to do that with me. She learned it from her grandmother as well. And then I learned that in my studies and so forth, right? So fever is a good thing, people, a good thing, right? Learn to manage it and work with it. And I said before, do not take anti-inflammatory drugs and drugs for pain and stuff like that. They're going to inactivate the immune response. We want the immune response to be highly active, right? Because we want to beat this and we want to beat anything. Who wants to be sick with anything? Being sick is horrid. Good. So we're going to get in now. We talked about prevention and we're going to get in now about what to do when you're coming down with it. First signs of this infection. You want to have your herbs ready. I've sold out of some of these herbs already, and we're getting more, right? More coming. I hope the supplier has, because we have numerous orders back to back coming, because I know I'm not going to have enough. So the first signs of illness, coughing, respiratory symptoms, and you know, the easiest way to know if it's a virus or not a bacteria, and that is, you see the body aches and pains? That's what comes with the flu and the coronavirus and so forth. You may not get it, but usually it's a telltale sign that it's a flu you have and not the common cold, or it's, right? Like the common cold is usually up here, right? The sniffles and then usually also the respiratory, the flus and the coronas are kind of a flu, lower respiratory tract, has a number of symptoms that are very similar to the influenza viruses, right? Good. So the herbs to hold on to for when you're getting it. We spoke about the herbs before, that you need to start doing now for the mucous membrane and building the immunity. And now the herbs are popular herb, echinacea. And from the sign of anything, you start using echinacea, right? Echinacea helps to stimulate immunity, brings out those fighting cells, the Pac-Man, the dendrites, the white blood cells, right? You want to use echinacea. And listen, you got to use good stuff, right? This is not, you could go in St. James and buy a little outfit on the side of the road, or you should go on us and buy an outfit there rather than the mall, some brand name thing. It don't really matter at the end of the day, right? But when you see you're buying food and you're putting things inside your mouth and medicines, you want the very best, okay? There should be no compromise. You want the best. So echinacea, you want. And you can start using the full dose, right? The full dose of echinacea, if you're using a good extract, is about 40 drops, 3 times a day. The other herb you want to have and use right away is elderberry. Some people call it elder, some people call it elderberry, some people call it black elder, or the Latin word is Sambucus nigra. Elderberry has antiviral properties. It has antiviral properties against most all the respiratory viruses, all the influenzas, all the swine flu, SARS, and I am pretty positive it will disable this coronavirus as well, right? So it also is an antipyretic, so it is stimulating fever. It is one of those that is going to make you sweat. It's going to bring up the body temperature. It's going to promote the fever for you, right? So that's echinacea and elderberry. The other one is cat's claw. Many people wouldn't know of it. It's South American herb. We do have it growing in Trinidad. I don't make herbs from anything growing here because the herbs that I want to use has to be grown properly. It has to be analyzed to make sure that it has the right strengths and constituents. It doesn't have bacteria and any viral load or fungal load. And when it's made, that it has the requirements that we want, so that it'll be therapeutic, right? So cat's claw is good because it is also antiviral against, again, these respiratory viruses, right? Active against it, very good. But it also has a component in it that's very good for muscular aches and pains. So it's going to help with muscular aches and pains, and one wouldn't have to go and use these ibuprofens and Panadols, which is going to, put you in trouble, right? According to the announcement today by the French Minister of Health, right? Good. Chicken soup. Chicken soup. You can make chicken soup with chicken feet. You boil it. I'm going to boil it on a simmer. Do I have pics of the herbs? No, I don't have pics of the herbs. If you go on my website or my Facebook page, you will see my dispensary and you can see pics of my dispensary. Right? Yeah, chicken soup is very good. Chicken soup, my mother used to give me it once I got sick with the virus. Chicken soup, there's research done on it, and there's something in the bone marrow that comes out of the chicken when you've got to simmer it for a few hours. And there's something that comes out of that bone marrow that stimulates our immune system. And I've been in Chinatowns in Toronto and in Australia, and I'm not sure if they sell it here in the Chinese shops, but they actually sell a little bottle of, it's chicken stock really, and they call it chicken essence. And they use that for flu. right? They just open it, they heat it up and drink it back. It's ready-made chicken stock, right? Very, very good old-time remedy. It works, right? It also, because of the hot soup, is going to help your body temperature rise, and you want to know that. Can you let me know the herbs can have possible interactions with other medicines? Listen, medicines can interact badly with everything. Herbs don't particularly interact badly with things. So, like people say, oh, the doctor said I shouldn't have ginkgo biloba with my aspirin. Well, I would say, well, you shouldn't have aspirin with your ginkgo biloba, right? So you want the herbs first, you want to get rid of the pharmaceutical medicines, right? That's what's messed up the world, and that is why the medical fraternity cannot deal with this. They don't know, they don't have the tools, right? They have nothing. And even the ibuprofen and the Panadols is what is killing the patients with the corona now, in trying to bring down the fever. So if you know people on pharmaceuticals, they need to get rid of it. They do nothing for you. They don't bill you. They might give you a little crutch to hold on for a little while, and that's it, right? So, chicken soup. No, sunshine. Sunshine, I know this a long time now. I've seen people talking about it now with the corona. I've used it with patients where they were struggling with, especially kids too, with congestion in the lungs. And you just start putting them in the sun for 10 minutes twice a day, bareback, and with the herbs, and the results are much quicker, right? So sunshine, and I just looked it up a couple of days ago, and there's studies on it, and the ultraviolet rays deactivate the DNA in the viruses and stop them from being able to live and to replicate and so forth, right? So sunshine, very good. Don't overdo it. You're not going to the beach and lie down in the sun for 4 hours and deplete your energy stores. You just want 10 minutes morning sun on your bare body as much as possible, and 10 minutes in the evening if you can. Something that you can handle. Right. I don't know how many of you know about a product called Ocilo or Oscillococcinum. I was bringing just a tube of it, but I forgot it. The tube is a little smaller than a battery. And it's a homeopathic medicine. I don't have it with me here. But it's a homeopathic medicine. It's in fact the biggest selling homeopathic medicine in the world. The first time I used it, I thank God for that, because I used to be very sick. And they used to give me antibiotics all the time on a weekly basis. Like Friday I go out on Lyme, and by Saturday I had a flu, and they were giving me these antibiotics. So I was a mess basically. The first time I took this Ocilo or Oscillococcinum, it's just some little sugar pills, and they have an energy that's impregnated into it, and just right away, within minutes, I went in my bed, drank my herb teas, did all that, went in my bed to lie down and relax and sweat it out, and I had the bone aches coming in and things, and I knew it was going to be a rough night. And lo and behold, I just put the cover on, and I felt so comfortable. So comfortable. Yeah, I mean, you have to experience it to see what I'm talking about. And, I wasn't, buckling up with aches and pains. I didn't have that hot type of fever. My temperature was not down. I didn't take away the fever. But it had some way this thing, and it's very hard to understand or even to explain homeopathy in its entirety. But it just made me comfortable. So I'm very glad that I found out about it, and then to learn now it's the biggest selling homeopathic medicine in the world for, I think, 15 years or so more. Yeah. So it's great. You can give it to anybody, kids, anything. It doesn't mix with anything, stop anything from working. It helps the immunity. So we spoke about Oscillococcinum. Another good one to know, homeopathic to know, is something called belladonna. And belladonna is a plant and it's toxic and poisonous, but it's made into a homeopathic preparation, and so there's no toxicity involved. But what the belladonna is used for is hot, dry fever. Hot, roasting, dry fever. So not the fever where you're wet and sweaty. It will not work that well. Use the Oslo. Right? But if you have or a child or anybody with a hot, dry, burning fever, yeah, belladonna. In less than 5 minutes, there's comfort. Right? Right. We already spoke about the fever, not to reduce the fever, and so forth. And so I think I covered what I wanted to cover today. Yeah, you can post questions if you have a question now again, or if you want to, sometimes I have to go and type and answer questions. So if you have a couple of quick questions for me, I'll read them and I'll answer them. Yeah, if anybody's tuning in from anywhere else, right? We're coming to you from Trinidad and Tobago, and yes, we have some good herbalists in Trinidad and Tobago and naturopaths. I am a trained naturopath and was trained and registered in Australia. I've been practicing herbal medicine for about almost 30 years. Next year is 30 years, and I was registered as well in Ontario, Canada, as a registered herbalist. I am also a clinical nutritionist and a number of other things, right? Oh yes, so as far as what to eat, so we talk about the chicken soup, we spoke about carrots and vegetables. Green vegetables are all good for the mucous membranes, right? Vegetables, you eat them up. Important, I was going to forget this. There's a saying, starve a fever, feed a cold, and some of us mix that up because we never understand, is it feed a fever, starve a cold, starve a fever, feed a cold. It's a very important saying because apparently that saying came from maybe some grandmothers who knew what they were doing instinctively. But some research has been done on us eating or not eating, so fasting, when we have an infection. And they did a research on both bacteria and viral infections. And what they discovered was that when we have a bacterial infection, we are best off keeping our sugars low. And the reason being is that the bacteria and fungus, or fungi, live off our circulating sugars, right? And by having a high sugar load, they can more easily propagate and take over. However, the situation is different for virus infections. So when they gave, and they did it with rats, and they looked at humans after, but they did their first experiments on rats. When they gave the rats who were infected with a viral respiratory load, and they gave them the sugar, they did well. But when they fasted them or just deprived them of sugar in the diet, gave them a diet but without sugar. When I say sugar, I mean carbohydrate that will produce sugar as well, right? Potatoes, bread, so forth. When they gave them a diet with sugar and they had a viral load, they did well, right? The host, the rat or the human being did well. And a reason for that is because the virus wasn't using the sugar. The virus can't use the sugar, right? The virus has to actually get inside our cells to use ATP ready-made in our cells. They must live in and off our cell energy. They cannot live in circulating sugar, with circulating sugars like the bacteria, right? So you don't want to starve yourself when you have a viral infection. You want to eat and you want to have your carbohydrates and have your sugars. What I found also is that having the sugars helped your immune mechanisms. It fueled your mechanisms because we are fueled by both sugar and fat, right? Some of us, we fuel too much with sugar, but we need some level of sugar to help us fuel our system and our immune system. So what you want to get from this is, if you have a virus, and if you have a respiratory virus, whether it's influenza, or because many people are going to still get influenza now, and some are going to get corona, and you know, we're going to know which one it is really, unless you go and get tested. And if you go and get, I'm not telling you, I am just saying what I do, and this is my perspective, right? Because I know for myself, if I come down with anything here today, I'm not going to get tested, to be held in the system and quarantined in that system, and to be given those medicines, where they're probably going to give me ibuprofen and Panadol and take my fever down so I have no immune response to fight for myself, right? I'm not doing that. So I know what I'm doing for me, right? I am embracing what I know I need to embrace. And people need to embrace what they need to know. They need to know a little more than they do know, right? People need to understand things. That is why I'm doing this, because the ministry had this thing today, a press conference, and did not say how to treat with an infected person while they're isolated at home or self-quarantining. They were asked it by the media, and they did not answer the question, right? There were no protocols. Come on, you must have protocols. Even if you say you're lying down in bed, putting a wash rag with a wet cold cloth on your head. Come on, right? These are certain protocols that people must know. And if you don't say it, the people wouldn't know. How are they going to know? Not everybody can go to the hospital, right? So that's why I'm sharing this, because they failed to give us simple, basic things at that press conference, right? So, for the viral load, and how you know you have a viral infection rather than the cold, a bacterial cold, the viral respiratory infection usually will have, as one of the components of the symptoms, is body aches and pains. That, for me, is the most distinguishing feature. I said earlier that usually the bacterial infections are here, and usually the other ones are the throat and down, but not always. But most of the time, the body aches and pains is going to be the clue that you have a viral infection. And I don't have to know if it's corona. I don't have to know if it's influenza. It's the same protocols. It's the same herbs. It's the same herbs and things that I pointed out for prevention. And it's the same herbs and protocols that I pointed out for treatment, right? If I get any updates and I have any more insights, I will post it on my Natural Balance Facebook page so people can see it. If I have to do a live again for something, I'll do it again. I ask that you share this video and share it with your friends and family so that more people could get a different perspective, right? Because certainly, and the ministry said that we should only listen to them because they're the only people that know what they're talking about, and they said don't listen to Facebook and don't listen to social media because they are the only authority on this. The Ministry of Health, go to the Ministry of Health Facebook page, and Ministry of Communication. They are the authority and they are the only people to listen to. But if they are the only people to listen to, many of us are going to die, right? Because the news from France this morning, they had the whole day to find out about that, right? What the French are saying about the ibuprofen, right? Causing people to succumb to their corona. And that is what is responsible. That's not my words. That's what the French Minister of Health has said. And they're discouraging people from using ibuprofen. I am saying that the same action of ibuprofen is the same actions as the Panadol, all the acetaminophen drugs, all those anti-inflammatory drugs. And guess what? Most old people, they are already on those drugs daily. Steroids, right? If you're on steroids, people need to come off steroids. You're going to succumb, right? You need to get a herbal replacement for your steroids. You do not need steroids. You do not need them, okay? Right? You need a replacement because they're going to mess you up, right? And that is why the old people are succumbing, because they have anti-inflammatory drugs, steroids, and all the other ones. And that is the possible reason why they are succumbing. And it's not me bringing that call out, it is the Minister of Health in France. And the Ministry of Health here should have come out with that today. They are behind times, right? Social media is the thing that's going to save us, right? In the end, it's social media, because that is where we're getting news from. And it's up to us to decipher what is truth from what is untruth. That is all. I don't need anybody to decipher it for me. I'm going to do it for myself. And people need to do that. And they need to decide who is the authority on health and who is the authority on their health. Whether it's the Ministry of Health, whether it's the government, whatever party is in power, right? And you leave it to them, well, I'm sorry for them, right? But everybody has that choice of what you do with your body, how you treat it, what you put into it, what you put in the hair, what you observe, what you listen to, and what you take in orally, right? I'm going to leave you with that because I think it's the longest I've ever spoken on a live, and I hope everybody got some information. Look, I get in a question. Stinging nettle. Stinging nettles for what? Not for fighting this, right? Stinging nettle is good for, if it's the leaves and the stems, it is a very nutritive herb. It's very good to remove gout from the bloodstream and so forth, right? Yeah. But to say that fight it, no. But people eat it and they take the leaves and they blanch it in a hot frying pan, and it deactivates the stingers, and they put it in a salad. And it's high in iron and zinc and calcium, right? And chlorophyll and stuff like that. But as something to fight, is not one of the ones that to fight. For building immune system, not the nettle. I mean, it'll have an activity because it's full of stuff and it's good, but it's not a specific immune builder. It's not in the list of immune building herbs, you know. So I spoke about them already, and the immune building herbs would be astragalus, ribwort, golden seal, to build the mucous membranes, and that mucous membrane defense mechanism, that inner wall there, because you want to have inside there wet when the virus lands in there, because that's where it's going. It's either going in the eyes, the ears, there, and you want wet mucous membranes to trap it and to be able to deal with it, right? So I thank you all for listening and looking on. I hope you got something out of it. What I spoke about, most of it is on the Facebook page, you know, is listed, and you can look at it there. And if you need anything at Natural Balance, I try to stock everything that we need. We're out of a few things already because, you know, it's been a little bit of a rush, but we still have some things, and we can guide you and put you on what you need to go on, and answer questions and go forward with this together, right? So take care of yourselves, eat good, eat sensibly, right? Remember, the body will need some carbohydrates. Do not starve yourself if it's a viral infection, because the rats and the people that they looked at didn't do very well when they fasted, when they had a virus infection. In fact, rats died. They succumbed to the virus, right? When they didn't eat, right? When they didn't get sugars from carbohydrates, right? So they didn't do well. So it's really, really important, right? So, you know, have a healthy evening, and talk to you again as soon as we need to do that, right? So bye for now from Natural Balance. Take care.